Good night.
There are love stories that begin with attraction. There are love stories that begin with fate. And then there are love stories that begin long before either person is aware they are part of them. Dracula and Mina do not meet for the first time when they see each other. They meet in the quiet space between memory and longing, in the place where grief never fully healed and love was never allowed to end. This is not a story about a monster finding a woman. It's a story about a man who lost everything he believed gave life meaning, and spent centuries waiting for proof that love was not erased when it was taken from him. Dracula does not chase Mina because she tempts him. He is drawn to her because something in her feels familiar in a way that bypasses logic. Familiar in a way that feels older than reason, older than fear, older than choice. When he looks at Mina, he is not seeing the present. He is seeing the echo of a life that was violently interrupted, a love that never reached its natural ending, a devotion that had nowhere to go when the world betrayed it. This is why their connection feels heavy rather than thrilling, why it feels sorrowful, even in its tenderness, why it carries the weight of something unfinished. Mina does not arrive as a new beginning. She arrives as a reminder, and reminders are dangerous when grief has been left unresolved. What Dracula feels is not simple desire, it's recognition, the kind that feels spiritual, intimate, and terrifying all at once. Recognition that convinces the heart it's found something it has been searching for across lifetimes. But recognition is not the same as love. Recognition does not ask permission. It does not pause for understanding. It does not care whether the person being recognized is ready to carry what is being placed upon them. Mina is not just seen by Dracula. She's remembered. And being remembered like this is not a gift. It's a burden. Because when someone believes you are the return of what they lost, they are not loving who you are. They are clinging to what they could not save. They're asking you to complete a story that began long before you existed. This is where the tragedy begins. Not with blood, not with darkness, but with longing that refuses to let go of the past. Dracula cannot let Mina go because she represents the possibility that his suffering had meaning, that love was not wasted, that devotion did not end in silence. And Mina stands at the center of that belief, caught between who she is and who she's being told she has always been. This is not a horror story, it's a human one. And to understand why Dracula cannot let her go, we must not look at the monster he became, but at the grief he never finished carrying. Part 1. Love that was never allowed to end. Dracula does not suffer from loneliness in the ordinary sense. He's not simply alone because centuries have passed. He's alone because his grief was never completed. Psychologically speaking, healthy grief requires finality. There must be an ending that the mind can accept, a death that is mourned, a loss that is integrated into identity, a moment where the psyche understands that love can exist even when the beloved does not. Dracula never had that moment. His original love was not just taken from him, it was violently severed in a way that shattered his sense of meaning, faith, and self. The loss was framed not as a natural ending, but as a cosmic betrayal. Love did not fade, it was stolen, and because it was stolen, it could never be released. This is where Dracula becomes psychologically frozen. Trauma freezes time. When trauma occurs at the level of identity, the mind does not move forward. It loops, it waits, it scans the world endlessly for something that will restore what was lost. Not something new, not something different, but the exact emotional frequency of the original bond. This is why immortality does not heal Dracula. It worsens him. Time passes, but his inner world does not evolve. The grief remains in its raw, unresolved form. The love never transforms into memory. It stays alive, aching, and unfinished. So when Mina appears, she does not enter his life as a stranger. She enters as recognition. Mina as a psychological mirror. Mina is not pursued because she's weak. She's not targeted because she's passive. She's drawn into Dracula's orbit because she reflects something he believes was lost forever. This is where projection begins. Projection occurs when the psyche assigns internal meaning onto an external person. It's not deception. It's not conscious manipulation. It's a survival mechanism. The mind desperately wants resolution, and it finds it wherever it can. Dracula does not see Mina as she is. He sees her as who she reminds him of. But more importantly, he sees her as who he was when love still felt safe. This is the most dangerous form of idealization. Not the kind that exaggerates beauty, but the kind that transfers destiny. Mina becomes the answer to a question she never asked. In psychological terms, Mina is positioned as a mirror self-object. She reflects back the version of Dracula that existed before loss turned into rage, before love turned into punishment, before eternity became a prison. This is why his attachment to her feels spiritual rather than sexual. His fixation is not rooted in desire alone. It's rooted in identity repair. If Mina loves him, then the story does not end in loss. If Mina chooses him, then history can be rewritten. If Mina remembers him, then he was never abandoned. She's not a woman to him. She's proof. And proof is something he has been searching for across centuries. The burden of being someone's destiny. Here's where Mina's psychology becomes essential. Mina is not merely being loved. She's being assigned meaning. And this is one of the most emotionally dangerous positions a person can be placed in. When someone is loved for who they are, the relationship allows for mutual discovery, growth, and autonomy. When someone is loved for who they represent, the relationship becomes a cage built from expectation. Dracula does not ask Mina who she's becoming. He tells her who she already is. This creates what psychologists call identity foreclosure. A person's future is defined before they have chosen it themselves. Mina is not allowed to evolve freely because she is already written into a story that existed long before her birth. This is why Mina experiences confusion rather than clarity around Dracula. There's familiarity, but not understanding. Emotion, but not agency. Connection, but not choice. Her psyche is pulled between two worlds, the life she knows and the life she is being told she belongs to. This creates dissociation, not empowerment. Love that removes choice is not romantic. It's overwhelming. Dracula believes he's offering Mina eternal devotion, but what he is truly offering is absorption. There's no space for Mina to exist outside of his grief. And yet, Mina does not reject him outright. Why? Because being idealized can feel intoxicating before it feels suffocating. Limrance and the illusion of sacred love. The emotional state that binds Dracula to Mina most closely resembles limerence. Limerence is not love. It's an obsessive emotional fixation fueled by fantasy, longing, and emotional dependency. It thrives in uncertainty and intensifies when the object of desire feels just out of reach. Dracula does not know Mina deeply. He does not witness her ordinary moments, her contradictions, her autonomy. He interacts with her primarily through longing. This keeps the attachment suspended in perfection. Reality would threaten the fantasy. True intimacy would require risk, and risk would mean accepting the possibility of loss again. So Dracula stays in the realm of emotional suspension. Mina becomes untouchable, sacred, and symbolic. She's not allowed to disappoint him because disappointment would shatter the illusion that this love was destined. This is why he cannot let her go. Letting her go would mean admitting that the original loss was final, that the past cannot be reclaimed, that eternity does not offer refunds. And Dracula cannot survive that realization. Trauma bonding across time. There's also a darker layer to their connection: trauma bonding. Trauma bonds form when intense emotional experiences create a sense of attachment that feels deeper than logic. They're often mistaken for soul connections because they bypass reason and go straight to survival instinct. Dracula's trauma is ancient, but it is still active. Mina is drawn into that trauma not because she caused it, but because she triggers it. She becomes the emotional anchor for his unresolved pain, and in doing so, she begins to carry weight that was never hers to bear. This creates a subtle imbalance. Dracula believes he's protecting her, but psychologically, he's asking her to hold his past steady, to validate his pain, to confirm that his suffering had meaning. That's an impossible task for any human. This is why their connection feels heavy rather than joyful. There's longing, but little peace. Intensity, but little safety. Love is present, but it's burdened by history. Why letting go feels like death. For Dracula, letting Mina go would not simply be losing a woman. It would be losing the last justification for his existence. If Mina is not the reincarnation of his lost love, then his centuries of suffering have no narrative reward. There's no cosmic balance, no restoration, no meaning that redeems the pain. He would be forced to confront a truth that he has avoided for centuries. That love can end without being restored. That loss does not always lead to reunion. That some stories do not circle back. This is unbearable for someone whose identity is built on devotion. Dracula is not afraid of death. He's afraid of meaninglessness. Mina gives him meaning. And so he holds on, not out of malice, but out of existential desperation. Mina as the unwilling healer. Many women resonate deeply with Mina because they recognize this dynamic. Being loved not for who you are, but for who someone needs you to be. Being placed on a pedestal that feels flattering at first, then exhausting. Being asked to redeem pain you did not create. Being told that your presence alone is healing. Mina's not weak, she's empathetic, and empathy without boundaries can become self-erasure. Dracula senses her compassion, her openness, her emotional receptivity. These qualities make her luminous. They also make her vulnerable to projection. She feels his pain, and because she feels it, she feels responsible for it. This is not romance. This is emotional entanglement. Why he cannot let her go. So why can Dracula not let Mina go? Because she represents the version of himself that existed before betrayal. Because she offers the illusion of narrative completion. Because she allows him to believe that love was not wasted. Because without her, eternity becomes empty time instead of sacred waiting. Mina is not just loved, she's needed, and need is far more dangerous than desire. To let her go would require Dracula to grieve fully, to accept finality, to allow love to exist without possession, to release the belief that devotion must end in reunion. That kind of emotional maturity is something immortality does not guarantee. Dracula and Mina do not share a love story meant to be lived in the present. They share a love story meant to be understood. It's not a romance designed for happiness or resolution. It's not a bond that leads toward peace, partnership, or mutual becoming. It's a love suspended outside of time, shaped by loss rather than growth, and held together by longing rather than choice. Their connection exists in the space between what was and what can never fully be. This is what makes it so haunting. Because at its core, their story is not about immortality or darkness. It's about what happens when grief is never allowed to complete its cycle. When loss is not integrated, but preserved. When love becomes something you carry instead of something you share. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when grief becomes identity. When the pain of losing someone becomes so central to who you are that letting go feels like erasing yourself. When memory hardens into purpose. When devotion becomes the only remaining proof that love once existed at all. It's about what happens when longing replaces presence. When the idea of someone becomes more powerful than the reality of them. When the past is more alive than the moment in front of you. When connection is built not on who a person is now, but on who they remind you of. And it's about what happens when destiny is assigned instead of chosen. When someone is placed into a role they never asked for. When love arrives already defined. When a person is seen not as an individual, but as the continuation of a story they did not begin. Dracula cannot let Mina go because he is still holding the past in his hands, waiting for it to breathe again. He is waiting for history to soften, for loss to reverse itself, for love to return in the same shape it once had, untouched by time or reality. Mina represents that hope, not consciously, not cruelly, but completely. As long as she exists in his life, the past feels unfinished rather than gone. And Mina stands at the center of that waiting, not as a villain, not as a savior, but as a mirror. A mirror that reflects everything Dracula never healed. everything he never released, everything he believed love was supposed to repair but never did. She reflects the cost of unresolved grief, the danger of mistaking recognition for intimacy, the quiet violence of being loved as a memory instead of a person. This is not horror. There are no jump scares here, no monsters hiding in shadows, no fear meant to shock the senses. This is human. It's the kind of story that unsettles because it feels familiar, because somewhere inside it we recognize the temptation to cling to what we lost, the desire to believe that love can undo time, the hope that if we wait long enough, something will come back to us unchanged. And this is why their story lingers long after the screen fades to black, because it leaves us with an uncomfortable truth, that love can be real and still be wrong for the present, that devotion can be sincere and still be destructive, that sometimes the most powerful love stories are not meant to be lived, but examined. Somewhere inside this story, we recognize the danger of loving someone as a symbol instead of a self, of asking another person to complete our grief, of holding on so tightly to the past that there is no room left for the living. Dracula and Mina are not a warning about monsters. They are a warning about memory. This is Strange Flick Facts, where we explore the psychology beneath cinema's most haunting characters. If this resonated with you, like and subscribe for more deep emotional breakdowns of the stories that stay with us long after they end.